present and where they're going in the future. But the past to me is very pivotal. It's very important that people
Oh
know,
yeah.
because the past is part of your story,
Oh
and
yeah.
it made you who you are. Jesus made you who you are today because of the whole story, the past, present, and
Oh
future.
yeah.
He
It's
doesn't see
amazing.
things as linear. He sees it as finished,
Yeah.
and he sees you as perfect. So when we
Yeah.
start to declare that and see others as perfect, I do it at work with the students I work with. Someone's starting acting out of character, out of the, not acting in the nature of God. You just say, that's not who you are. Just call it out. That's not you. You're a good kid. You don't mean that. And
Coming across themes in the Bible and would, then go to a pastor or someone and be like, yeah, I've got some questions, and they would dismiss me. And it got to the point where I was like, hold up a second. I don't think they should be dismissing these questions. And then I came across some deconstructionism content. Are you familiar with any of
yeah,
this?
yeah, we use that
So,
term sometimes. Yeah,
well, deconstructionism, like their arguments, because I literally have gotten into Christian debates and had these like conversations and dialogues where we're like really trying to like grind out like what's truth, what's not truth. And I'm reading some deconstruction arguments. I'm like, that's actually a good argument. Like, let's be honest about the argument. So then I would go research the argument from a Christian standpoint, and their argument was, well, they just aren't Christians. They went out from us. And I'm like, hold up a second. Like, let's pump the brakes. Like, we're supposed to be Christians, and we're seriously just going to default whenever someone's beliefs or they have a tough question that they just aren't of us. That's the answer. I mean, to me,
so what was the question that led them to think that they weren't a Christian?
well, one question would be like, it's the standard, and it's still a good argument. There's a couple, but the standard is, how can an all-loving God punish his own creation for eternity? I mean, that's like,
Right, right.
it's just a legitimate question, you know?
Yeah, well, that's one of many theologies regarding hell, but yeah, that's become like the popular theology in the Western evangelical churches
Yeah.
in the East. Yeah, here in the West, that's just, yeah, just sort of like, it's just sort of like, that's just word of mouth, right? It's like you don't necessarily read the Bible, you just kind of hear or regurgitate what other people say.
Yeah.
But if you give them the Bible and they are looking at it from that lens of doom and gloom, you could see it that way. You could see it literal if you look at it in a literal lens. But then again, is Jesus really a lamb? Is he really the Lion of Judah? There's a lot of
Oh, yeah. Well,
allegory.
and that's the other argument, was the penal substitution atonement. Like
Yep.
and
Okay. Yep. They
how
don't
can a
like that.
father kill his own child? And
Yeah. No.
it's like, I mean, that's a fair
No.
question.
We did it. We did it. Peter even said, you killed Jesus, it was us,
Yeah.
they put him on a cross and
And
he went ahead
Jesus,
and saved us all.
and he forgave them,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah. It's
Right at the
crazy.
end there.
Mad love.
So these like topics, just it's like, on one hand, I've got the truth, Jesus is real, right? I know that he's real. I know what he did. On the other hand, I'm starting to see the churches as like the reason the gospel actually isn't going out to the whole world. And it's like my worlds are just like,
Yes.
here in this deep South, this deep Reformed, Calvinistic
Sure.
churches everywhere. Seventh Day Adventism has a huge following here, very legalistic church group,
Okay.
and so it's just like this really, only a few are going to be saved. I mean, it's everywhere.
I
Doesn't matter.
think they believe in annihilation.
They do,
Right?
they
Yeah.
do, and
So
and
not as bad, but still.
well, so yeah, well, just a little note on that. I've studied all three positions out. I like so when if I were to like argue a position, I like to think that the honest approach is to know my opponent's position so good that I can teach it better than them. And if
Right.
studying this, I came across and I was like, oh, I can't deal with this, then I need to change my own position and be honest about it. And then tell other people, hey, I've changed my position, especially if I've taught someone. So that's my position. So annihilationism, ECT, eternal conscious torment, I've studied them both. I studied annihilationism now for almost 10 years. So, and the annihilationism argument, to me, the one of the big problems with it is if so do you have kids by any chance? So if your kid didn't choose Jesus and on judgment day Jesus just annihilates him, not only do you enter into the kingdom without your child, you enter into the kingdom without your identity.
Hmm.
Like you lose, it robs you of your motherhood,
Hmm.
you know. And there's just no way that a Christian full of the divine love of God
Yeah,
would be okay with that. Like it's just absurd.
it is.
So, like I'm just looking at people like, do you really want to argue this? Like it's great. Like you
Yeah, like, are you
cross this
better than God? Are you nicer
line.
than God?
Yeah, like and if we love our kids to the point that we would never give up. I mean, if my child was Hitler, that'd suck. But like
Yeah,
I wouldn't stop loving him, you know?
yeah.
And
I
then
know.
you come to the realization, I think, and I know you've come to this realization, that's that we've all been deceived in the way we think, the way we view God. And so yeah, so anyways, I think these teachings, both ECT and annihilationism, are to me, and if someone had like a better opinion or argument, I'd love to hear it. But these are the most damaging things to the gospel. Like they hurt it like so badly. And here I am in the middle of Christian. Everyone thinks I'm a heretic now. So
Mm.
I mean, I don't know. It makes me almost burst out laughing. It's like, come
Do
on,
you do
y'all.
you have some buddies there that you hang out with, like a little glory
Oh yeah.
like tribe at least?
I've got a guy coming over tonight. He's an elder in a Reformed church. He's going to come over here around 5 o'clock, so in about 40 minutes or so, and then we do a Bible study. And he's actually, he's so. I mean, he's for 40 some years he's learned this. So yeah, so he's coming over here, and then I've got like some pastors and stuff that are like, um, they view me as dangerous.
Oh,
So, so well, because I, it's like when you start to articulate these things and then you show them how the verse is and kind of start lining it out, like, look, like this isn't, like just like, please hear this out. Their whole worldview is being changed,
yeah,
you know, and stuff. And so, for me, and this is new, is like, how do I really really address this? I don't know. Like I'm new at this, but part of me wants to go sit in front of a church and like hold up a sign, be like, I train people on how to teach hell or something.
yeah,
Because it's like you don't really believe what you're saying. Does
yeah,
that make sense? Like it's like if I held out a sign that said, make sure and tell all your loved ones that they're gonna burn hell if they don't believe like you do. On the back it says, but Jesus loves you.
yeah. I think a lot of people are closet believers in full redemption. I really do. I used to think that, oh man, if you're a Christian, 90% of you, at least 90% of you believe in that hell thing, eternal conscious torment. But then as I started talking to people, like I go to a Methodist church, I've been to a congregational church, and definitely in those particular streams, there's a lot of people who are just closet believers in the full gospel message. They just don't feel empowered to say anything. They're like either just too scared or just don't want to or whatever. But more me, on the other hand, I want to tell everyone, So it's interesting if you actually ask someone one on one what they believe. You might be surprised. There's especially the elders. Like it's funny because, well, I mean, a lot of women. Maybe I don't know about men as much. Like they're a little stubborner. The ones I've talked to, but
You think?
if you're an older woman and you've been in hospice care, you've seen people on their deathbeds and all different religions, and you love God, you love Jesus, and you pray for them. You just can't help but see the loving God. You can't see anything else. So you'd be surprised. A lot of people actually believe it. They do. They do. They're coming around. I feel like God is like opening the eyes, you know?
Oh yeah, yeah, yeah. I totally. You know, where the community I live in, it's just really dogmatic.
Yeah. Oh,
in
yeah.
in in that regard. It's like online, I'm noticing that. Like I've noticed, like, hey, there are people that kind of come out of their shells, and I think
Yeah.
the content's also becoming like really theologically sound. It always has been. You've read some of the patristic fathers and
Yeah.
stuff.
I've read Saint Athanasius,
Yeah, yeah,
uh-huh, and a little bit of Origin. I haven't read Saint Augustine, but I've read about him. I read a biography.
yeah.
So
And
I
there's
know
like,
he comes from the Greek
yep.
what paganism. So he has the pagan influence, and that's part of why hell came into the picture. This,
Yeah, well, no,
very,
he so Augustine was both pagan influence, and he actually didn't know Greek. He had Latin manuscripts, and this is
Latin.
where his translation problem came from. And then I
Ah,
would recommend someone to Saint Isaac the Syrian. So,
okay.
some Christians consider him to be the most beautifully written patristic father when it comes to the subject of love.
You said Isaac? You said
Saint
Saint?
Isaac, Saint Isaac the Syrian,
Okay.
and look up some of I mean, the writing's just it's so rich and beautiful, and like we read modern stuff, and and then you compare it sometimes, and you're like, these guys really were like involved.
Wow.
We shouldn't just dismiss what they wrote,
Yeah.
of course, in the Western Christianity is a it's a
How about Gregory of Nazarean?
yep,
I,
yep,
I've
amazing.
read some of his stuff.
Yeah.
Um,
And
uh,
he was helped co-author the Nicene Creed,
yep. Yep.
which is it's just interesting. Like, so people say, oh, it's eternal conscious torment is tradition. It's like, no, actually,
No, that's late. That came late.
but 500 years later, yeah. So
Yeah.
just so tell me more. How long have you come to this realization? How long has it been since you crossed this bridge?
Um, it's been, I'm trying to think. So let's see, 2012 years, about that.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. But like it was a slow progression, it didn't just all happen right away, you know?
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Yeah. But now, even before the 7 years, like, even before that, I was actually more into New Age and Buddhism. I was already like done with Christianity. Like I grew up with Christianity, and I went to college, got a little
Mhm.
messed up, and got stuck in addiction, became totally addicted, just full on addicted to, opiates, cocaine, everything, anything, And then
Yeah.
that went on for like a good 5 to 7 years, and then recovery another 5. Then I had my daughter. It was just like about a year ago where I had an encounter. No, a year after my daughter was born, I had an encounter. And the encounter with the Lord was literally with Jesus. It was like the Holy Spirit was showing me Jesus and how real he is. And it was just like my whole kitchen was just flooded with light. It was literal light. It was the light from the sun. But like when I was in the room, I just felt like the glory weight of his presence and just fell to the floor. And it's so strange because I wasn't in a repentive mood. I wasn't like having a bad day. I wasn't having a good day. It was just a regular day. You know what I mean? And I was just like, wow, this is I just went to the floor, and then like I started speaking in tongues, which I never done before either, because I didn't grow up Pentecostal. I didn't know what it was until after someone told me what it was. So that makes sense now that but
Oh,
it was
cool.
just a beautiful encounter with the Lord. And ever since that day, well, like for the first couple of weeks, I got super legalistic, and because I didn't want to lose it, I like but in a good way. I was like just super kind to people. I used to not put my shopping cart away. I would put my shopping cart away. I would say thank you, please, and thank you to people. Like, make sure I'm very kind, and manners, just everything changed. And then yeah, I got into like some other different religions in Christianity, and what Seventh-day Advent was one of them. Yeah, like I said, about a year or two then and on, I started questioning some things, and yeah, the last 5 years or so, I've been just like experiencing the glory, the finished work. I'm writing now. I'm technically an author, which I'm really excited about. So yeah, that's a little bit of my story. So
Oh wow, that is so cool.
I
Yeah,
was
no,
gonna
it's
ask
cool.
you about Maximum Confessor. Have you read him? Because I heard that he's good too, but I never read him.
I've
Maximum.
read like some quotes, but nothing like in depth from him.
Okay.
But I will mark that down because
Yeah. Anyone
there's a,
else before we move on? Any other theologians that you would recommend, like the patristics?
I mean, I just for you, I would read Saint Isaac the Syrian. You're going to be
Yeah.
George MacDonald. Have you heard of him?
Yes. Well, I'm in a
Uh,
group book Bible study slash book
yeah,
study on the hope of the gospel.
yeah.
Yeah. But just
Um,
definitely our listeners are always asking like about the patristics, and they're
yeah.
asking like, who do you recommend? Who do you recommend? And the only thing I could recommend really is George MacDonald unspoken sermons.
It's
But
amazing. Yeah,
but yeah,
amazing.
if you have others, let me know, or yeah, let people know. But yeah, that's cool. I never heard of that guy, Saint Isaac the Syrian.
I can honestly say that you'll be blown away at his depth of like how he explains God's love.
Yeah.
It's truly beautiful. I think it's the best I've ever read. I've
I
ever
saw
read.
like Athanasius on the Incarnation was pretty
Yeah,
good. Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
that was pretty
you're
rich.
gonna like Saint Isaac. That's why I brought it
Mhm.
up
Cool.
particular for you and your channel and
Cool.
stuff. So, but yeah,
Well, yeah, that's a little of my story. But how about you? Why don't you introduce
well,
yourself? We haven't really done that yet, and
yeah,
just
I just
let
got
us
done. Then,
know who you are, where you came from, and where you are now.
well, I mean, I live in Chattanooga. I'm a digital marketer, so I market. I've worked with from bigger brands and larger, from international conglomerates to even some smaller local businesses. And then I've been a Christian now for about 15 years. And I just became, I was kind of similar story, sort of years. Parents Christian, fell away because you never really believed in a sense. Um, then got into new age sort of thought and stuff, like quantum physics and just all that type of new ageism.
Yeah.
And one day I was just like, I just realized, just kind of looking out into the woods. I was in Colorado at the time, just looking out into the woods, and I realized that, or into the mountains, that something had to have created this. Like, this new age thought really didn't make sense. Like, something created. So I got down to my hands and knees, and I had like Bibles, the Quran. I read stuff. I read the Tao Te Ching. I'm a big reader. The Veda texts
Yeah.
from
Yeah.
Buddhism, and so I
Yeah.
just read and read
Yeah.
and stuff, and I just was sitting there. I remember I had all my books, and I'm like, God, I gotta be honest with you. If you're real, this is confusing. like, like, I don't know how I'm supposed to tell from all this mess, and and not to even mention each one of these is broken down into sects and this version and this
Mhm.
school of thought. So I just asked him to reveal himself, and at the time, I was actually living in Colorado. I was a big marijuana farmer at the time. With 3 days later, I get drug busted for for having a bunch of quite a lot of marijuana. I'm not even telling you how much.
Yeah.
It would make like the news channel here in the South. So um, but I knew it was Jesus. Like, I just knew it, and I can't even really explain it. I just knew.
Yeah. Yeah, that's the
And
thing. It's hard to explain. Yeah, I
yeah,
get that.
I knew, and I knew he wanted something better for me. And the like I ended up like getting like slapped on the wrist. I didn't even spend a day in the jail for a crime. Here I would be in jail for like 10 years. So, like I got like I got a fine, had some legal fees and stuff, but it was like amazing. Like everything just shifted. And then kind of similar to you get drug into like, and I think that it seems just like the normal thing to do because it's what everyone else is into institutionalized Christianity. Like, hey, I want to go be with other Christians. And then here starts to rise up the legalism. I was playing golf one day, and Seventh-day Adventist pastor ends up, because we had a threesome, ends up joining our group. And my buddy's like, "Oh, Chris is a born again Christian, and he loves talking about Jesus." And this guy's like, "Well, I'm a pastor for a Christian church," and he I ended up like, "Would you like to do a Bible study sometime?" And that led me into like, "Oh, I don't keep the Sabbath," and I hadn't studied the Bible because I'm so early. This is 14 years ago, and that's what led me into annihilationism and the debunked study. So I was a Seventh Day Adventist for little over 9 years,
Mhm.
and then same thing. Reading. I was like, I want to go preach the gospel because I'm reading about reading the Bible on my own, and then they handed me copies of the Great Controversy. I'm sure you're familiar with,
Yeah.
and I was like, well, that's not the gospel, and the pastor told me, and it wasn't even being argumentative. I was like, that's the Great Controversy is not the
Right.
gospel.
Right.
And he's like, well, then God's going to replace you. And I was like, wait, hold up
What?
a second.
God's
Yeah,
gonna what?
to my face, he said God would replace me because I wouldn't go pass out the Great Controversy.
What? That is
Yeah.
stupid.
This guy, I was like, I mean, and
Was that
so,
a red flag for you, or were you like actually hurt by it
oh,
at the time?
it was huge. I actually left the church. I didn't go to another church for almost 2.5 years. But I studied it. It caused me to actually like get rid of some clients and only keep the ones where I like had really good relationships with. And I began studying the Bible, and I'm not even kidding you. Um, 8, 10 hours a day. I mean, every day for 2.5 years straight. Like reading the Bible and studying and reading. I could show you the notes I've taken. It's crazy. Like and I categorized them and tagged them and organized them, and just started like really studying. And I was like, it just led me into like, okay, it's clearly Seventh Day Adventism has a sort of false gospel. It was clear to me.
Mhm.
So the question became like, well, where do I go find Christians? And everyone is like, you got to come to church with me. You got to come. They're all Reformed,
Yeah.
Calvinistic. And so I'm like, okay, like, I guess this is what everyone's doing. I want to be tradition. I want to be in an Orthodox church. And that led me into, to a Reformed church. And then in the Reformed, I just started as like someone would preach. They do like exegetical preaching where they preach from the word of God, right?
Mhm.
And I'm sitting there going, they were preaching like this predestination, and I didn't fully understand Calvinism, but they were preaching that only some people were chosen from the foundation of the world, and you were lucky.
Mhm.
And I was like, I remember being like, is this really true? And so I started studying it myself. So I would go read the Bible. I wouldn't go to a YouTube channel. I would literally just read it. I'm gonna study.
Mhm.
I already have like tons of notes and stuff, and I've read these passages. Who knows how many times? But I was reading them like in this light. Are we just chosen? And as I went through Paul's argument, he ends. So he has a. If you read Romans through, he's actually building this crazy argument. And so instead of just cherry picking the verses, you start in Romans 1, you work your way through
Yeah.
it. And when you get to Romans 9, that's where he does the predestination stuff. And he's talking about Pharaoh. I chose you. I hardened his heart, but for your
Yeah.
heart, your vessel of wrath. Who can tell the potter who formed the clay what he can do and all that stuff? Well, they just kind of stop right there. See, there's the elect. And it's like, no, he finishes this argument up in Romans 11. It's clear as day if you just keep reading. And it says in Romans 11, it says that so that he may capture all in disobedience, so he may have mercy on all, right? And I was
Yeah.
like showing the pastor and the elders this. I was like, you guys
Yeah.
have this wrong, and this is wrong. You need to read this argument through. And they're like, So as I'm showing this, the elders are going and telling people in the church that they need to mark me. I'm sorry, I'm laughing, but it's just so absurd. Like that I have to be marked and avoided. Right?
What does that even mean? Marked?
I'm just like, what?
You can't make this stuff up.
Yeah, I mean, I'm just like, and I'm thinking to myself, wait a second, so I've got to be marked and avoided because I'm preaching the love of God doesn't fail. Let's just get
Mhm.
this straight, right? And
Wow.
in my and this whole time I've been like I've always had like a and I think a lot of universals will struggle with this part of my personality, and that is I actually am a really well seasoned debater.
Mhm.
So I'm not like you, and I'm an honest debater. I mean, I don't debate to win. I debate to gain knowledge, right?
Mm.
And to impart knowledge. Like I really do want to change my position if it's wrong. I don't want to be wrong.
Yeah. What do you think their problem? Do you think that they think? Just hear me out here. A question, because this is bugging me. Do you think that people like that are like are viewing you as prideful? Just hear me out. Like, do you think that maybe they are, because this has happened to me. They because you're younger, you haven't been, oh, what does this guy know? He's a new Christian or whatever the case may be. But they think that you're coming at them in pride and arrogance or something. And so then they just automatically dismiss it. Or do you think they like truly just don't want to give it the time of day? Or what do you
Yeah.
think? What is it?
Well, the Bible says it is fool, and you might be familiar with this. It is foolishness not to listen and
Yeah.
hear the person out. That's in Proverbs.
Right,
It
right.
says actually a few times in Proverbs, a couple different ways.
Right.
But
There's no harm in listening. It's not like you're gonna lose your salvation or something by
well,
listening.
the biblical mandate is to actually listen and to consider what's being said. It even says it goes on to say like another one will come along and prove you wrong, like in this this court that we're having.
Mhm.
And so it's like, hey guys, like really truly listen to this. And I think that I think you're what you just said about them viewing me as prideful and their own issues is a mix. So like how can this person who didn't go to seminary know about the Bible like us? Right. And
Mhm.
then they themselves are sitting on like, they're kind of lording over the congregation every day. They I call them king pastors or king priests. Like
Mhm.
they just lord